Kia ora, you're at a loss. I'm Timothy Giles. I'm a funeral celebrant. A role which gives me the gift of spending time with people who've really understood how to live a full life when death has made its presence felt. The point in these conversations is to talk about grief, but from a place of living a full life. Aston Wells. I just about called you Sean.
I know. I caught you.
When we first met, you were at primary school, right?
Correct.
I don't know if was Shawnee at school by that time, or was he still preschool? Do you remember?
Probably preschool, to be honest.
How old are you now? And I look, as I say that, I feel it's such what the old man says to the young guy. It's like, so how old are you now?
I just turned 35.
35.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a good 30-year span we've known each other, my friend.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
And Sean, your little brother, has been dead for how long now?
10 years as of March 2nd this year. So he was 2010. He passed away.
Do I say happy anniversary?
Not many people have.
No.
I don't. Yeah, it's as I sort of said to you before, the celebration of his death we mark on his birthday. The second of the third is almost it's just another day, and that's how sort of both myself and my family have always treated it. It's never been a moment where we dwell on this. You know, it's not this pinnacle day of the year where
can we talk for a moment then about Shawnee?
Of course.
Because you're taller than me now, and bigger than me, and stronger than me, and smarter than me, and more successful than me, and I only resent it a little bit, Aston. Nice. But I remember you as boys, and you were the classical older brother. Because he was trouble, mate. Like
he was mischief.
And he was mischief.
Yeah.
And
personified.
But you had to love him, right? I mean, like, you know, we went away on holidays, and he was just fun, right? And yeah, he was naughty, and he was trouble, and he was bad, but you had to forgive him and join in with him.
Yeah.
And I was the adult.
Yeah.
Yeah. How was it being his big brother?
It was incredible, to be fair. I mean, growing up as young boys, you know, we bickered, we fought, we did all the things that typical brothers do. We're 23 months apart, so not a huge amount, but enough for my mother to consider us almost twins. And in that respect, I was made to take him everywhere with me. Growing up, so he was always, if Aston was going out with his friends, Sean was going with him. If Aston was going to a birthday party, Sean was going with him. And at the time, I dreaded it. I absolutely hated it. I was like, why can't Sean have his own life? Where are Sean's friends? You know. But looking back on it, I wouldn't change it for the world because of the bond that was created. And almost, you know, you have a brotherly bond. But this was I considered it far more than that.
Let's talk about that for a moment, because you have your own business, you're successful, and well done, mate, you know, with working as hard as you've done and what you've created. And you founded it with your brother.
I did, yeah.
And you were living together.
We were, yeah.
I mean, that's unusually close.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was an intense bloke.
He was, yeah, especially at that stage of his life. You're obviously aware of him growing up in his youth and the trouble that he got into, but the sort of the turnaround that he did and the transition he went through.
But let's talk for a moment about some of the trouble, right,
okay,
that he got into. Just to give an illustration.
Yeah.
The little boy was mischief and so lovable, right? And you know, I loved that little boy. And then we watched the young man emerge, and
the adolescent had a point to prove.
Okay, tell me.
I don't think it was necessarily. I don't think it was driven by any sort of need to be respected or whatever. It was just he wanted to make a mark, and I think he was never in a position where he directly, I think, influenced people. Like he wasn't that kind of like yeah. It was more like people were gravitated towards him, and he was the leader of his pack, and again being at the forefront of that, and because of the mischief that we used to get up to back then. It escalated from, you know, your sort of, you know, drinking in the park type scenario to a bit of vandalism to graffiti to fighting to, you know, it escalated quite significantly. to the point where, he ended up in the district court, and he ended up losing an eye because of it, because someone had a problem with him, and ended up shooting him in the face with a slug gun. So he lost his eye, and it got really, really gnarly there for a bit.
And it wasn't really a surprise when that happened, was it?
No, it was what's the word? It was almost revenge, or another person then trying to sort of, cut someone else off power down. We were very competitive back then. All young men are. We were heavily influenced by, I guess, like hip hop, and we loved that culture. We had crews, and it all seems a bit strange now. But that's the kind of world that we involved ourselves in as young boys.
Now that you're a 35-year-old man, it seems strange.
Yeah, I mean, the brotherhood created was amazing amongst our friends. But the activities that we got up to, we didn't need to walk that line so closely. I think, just because of the grief that it caused other people. It wasn't, looking back on it, it was unnecessary, I think. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily change the lessons learned, but I would take back any sort of pain or grief that we caused other people, having now gone through probably the most grief-stricken period of my life.
Well, let's have a look for a moment, though, because Shawnee's wheels were much wobblier than yours in that time.
He just got caught.
Okay.
He just got caught. In
But
all honesty.
yours really came off later.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that in a moment. But what's interesting to me is, would we say 11 years ago, 12 years ago, you guys were on form. You were focused. You were that exuberance and energy that had gone into things that did cause damage to others, right? And alarmed those who loved you.
Yes.
Then went into work and into creating something, right? Is that 12 years ago?
Yeah. We were both we both entered university around the same time. I'd taken a year off after high school, just to experience work, and I was a labourer on a construction site, and then doubled that up by being a kitchen hand at nighttime. So it was a very I just enjoyed work. I enjoyed money. I enjoyed going out and all the rest of it. And then we sort of ended up at uni and sort of battled our way through the early years. And then we got me going from earning, I sort of say like a whopping $900 at 18 years old.
But that was a lot
per
of
week.
money.
It was a lot of money. Then to university, where we had to rely on, fortunately enough, the student allowance, which was 150, and of that 150, mum instantly got 100 for board and all the rest of it. And then the 50 was really just travel from where we were living into the city to go to AUT. And so that transition for me was actually quite difficult, going from one life almost to another. And so for the first few years, we sort of struggled with that, but we ended up just making money. We went out there and we put ourselves out there, and our mother really put us out there. Like we'd be doing garden makeovers one weekend, we'd be doing painting of walls one weekend, and we basically created, unbeknownst to us, for us it was pocket money, but unbeknownst to us it was literally the starting of this business. That then when we first got our first client, which was a restaurant group, they had 4 restaurants, one in Ponsonby, Takapuna, Albany, and Remuera, and that was our run 7 days a week while we were completing our degrees.
What were you doing?
Cleaning, commercial cleaning.
That was the birth of Wells Brothers Cleaning.
That really was. That's when we knew we had something, because the person who we were cleaning for, we had uncovered, was actually an incredibly stringent operator in his own right. And for a cleaning company, that made it very difficult. Where at one point, the pest control guy, we actually bumped into him one morning, and he actually said, "Wow, you guys are still here." And this is almost 18 months along the track, and he basically said no other cleaning company has survived past 6 months that I've known, and I've been servicing these sites for 15 years. So for us, that was a moment. That was when, like, okay, cool, let's see how far we can take this.
Because what I observed from a distance was you two were obsessed. Is that fair?
Yeah. We wanted to create a legacy. It was the first time, I think, in our lives where we shared this common goal through a common vehicle, through a vehicle we had created, and a vehicle we were very passionate about. And we because it's stuff that we'd done our whole lives, earning little pocket money here and there. It was just this wonderful energy around the business. And at that time, as we sort of alluded to before, Sean had done a complete 180, 360, however you want to call it.
No, it's a 180 because a 360, he's back in the spin of the stuff
my
he's doing.
apologies. Yeah,
right?
it was a firm 180.
He was, I mean, I still remember with his kickboxing, right? And mates of mine who were, some of them actually professional fighters.
Yeah.
And they would train with Shawnee and they'd just go like, your young mate kicked my ass. He was a phenomenal athlete.
I attribute a lot of that 180 to that gym, to the whole Liga family at the time. To this day, are still very good friends of mine, and will always have a very special place in my heart for the influence that they had on his life. You know,
can I just come to now? We all watched Sean become this amazing, one-eyed kickboxing, business-obsessed, hard-working. You guys started to have money. You were employing friends. You were helping friends get the experience you'd had of, hey, here's what work does for you.
Yeah.
Right? Bring the pride, the identity, the purpose, and then the good things that come from that, right?
Yeah, I mean, our first employee actually, funny enough, was a guy by the name of Rihan, and he had literally just flown in from Sri Lanka with his family to start a new life. And his first port of call was our mother's garage in Green Lane, walking into a job interview that me and Sean had staged. And to this day, he is still my right-hand man. He's my operations manager. He's my brother. He has been absolutely incredible over the past 10 years with my own recovery.
So I want to talk about that past 10 years because the wheels came off for you, Aston.
Yeah.
They came off
pretty dramatically. Yeah.
And it started when Shawnee died.
Yeah, there was a tendency to kind of push the boundaries before that, but once that happened, there were no boundaries.
It was a sudden death.
It was sudden, yeah, and obviously we were living together. So I was at home watching a movie. Sean came home having just gone out for dinner, which I found out later was by himself. He took himself to the Ponsonby food court and got his favourite meal at the time, which was a Penang curry, and then came home. And when he came home, he basically just said, hey, and went straight to bed. And I thought, okay, that's just Sean. He's had a big day or whatever. I stay up quite late watching a movie and all the rest of it. And then at about 1 o'clock, I hear a glass smash in his room. And growing up, Sean had always suffered from asthma. And so there would be these violent asthma attacks. And I guess that's triggered something for me. Not that he'd had that for years. At about 13, he'd kind of gotten over the asthma. And then that sort of triggered something for me. So I got up and ran into his room and turned on the light. And he was basically sort of crouched down, stomach facing the mattress, crouched over with his blanket over him. And I flicked on the light, and the first thing, and because I was sort of a bit dazed anyway, the first thing, he basically just sort of pushed himself up and looked at me in the eye and just said, go away, go away, go away. And my reaction to that was, well, he was potentially with someone, that was, Sean, was a,
fit and handsome.
Fit and handsome, yeah. And so I kind of got a little bit embarrassed and turned off the light and left. Thinking back on it, I'll never forget the color of his eyes at the time. It was either his pupils were incredibly dilated, or it was just black, and Sean had quite soft brown eyes. And now that I think about it, when you flick lights on, your pupils contract. That's just what we do, and that wasn't the case. So after going back to sleep, I woke up, and it probably was about like 9 o'clock, to be honest. And I went to the bathroom, and I noticed that Sean's door was closed, and it was dark under the door. There was a gap; you could see the light. Sean would have been up at 7 o'clock running up Mount St. John, and his door was always open, windows open. By that time, he would have been sort of in our office working, and so that kind of triggered something for me. And then evidently opened the door, saw him in there, ran over to him, and he was stone cold. And then from there, it's a bit of a blur. I don't really remember. I remember getting on the phone, calling the ambulance. They were trying
So
to.
from there it is a blur, and I think the blur lasted how many years?
6 or 7. Oh, no, 6. Because there was a year where. No, probably 6 or 7.
Let's talk about self-destructive behaviour.
It's looking back on it, it was incredibly selfish. But I didn't really see any other way. It was the way I dealt with it. And it wasn't just Sean's death that I was dealing with at the time. I think I got smashed with a lot of grief from previous deaths. My grandma, my granddad also died in quick succession, who were incredibly influential on my life. We would go to her house every day after school because mum was out there working, being the solo mum she was. So she was our second mum, and that literally happened 11 or 12 months before Sean passed away. So mum got smashed with a double whammy. I mean, as did I. But yeah, I just sort of completely lost track. And as I sort of say, my happiest place was with my brother. And so, not directly, but indirectly, I did everything in my power to push those boundaries. And I guess at the time, and I say this really loosely, but hopefully end up in my happy place. Because again, I must stress, it wasn't a direct course of action I took. I just did some really crazy shit.
It wasn't a death wish.
No, it wasn't a death wish.
It was it a loss of, you said there were no boundaries, so was it the loss of, was it a reaching for something, do you think?
Oh yeah, it was an absolute cry for help. 100%.
You were hard to help, mate.
There was there was no hope helping me, but it was when I actually look back on it, everything I was doing was trying to create some attention, but not like in a direct attention seeking way. It was more like I needed to be hugged, I needed to feel safe, because I was living an incredibly unsafe life.
In what ways?
Just being out all hours of the day, mixing with a very interesting crowd that probably definitely didn't have my best interests at heart.
Or their own.
Or their own. Just acting out really. A lot of drinking, drugs. I unfortunately had a vice where driving was a thing for me. I'd be in social situations, then I'd be drinking, and I found that I was drinking to suppress, and then that suppression would lift quite dramatically, and it would then be drinking to express. And by being in a social situation, the last thing I wanted to do was sit there and wallow and cry and all the rest of it. So I would get in my car, which is incredibly reckless and dangerous. And I learned the repercussions of that the hard way.
Well, you didn't learn quickly, did
No,
you?
I didn't learn quickly. It was over a number of years.
And over a number of convictions.
Yes. It wasn't it wasn't a swift lesson.
And did you have substance dependency?
It would be very easy to say yes, but I think that the dependency came from trying to deal with the grief.
Okay.
Because once I kind of stopped, I stopped. Like immediately. There was no like weaning off it, or there was no.
Okay, but you stopped at the last minute
Yeah.
before the one thing that you didn't want, which was a custodial prison sentence, right? And it's fair to say at the last minute, right?
Yeah, it was. I didn't have to. I don't think I have to. I mean, I got through. I managed to get through 9 months of kind of faking it that I was
being monitored by a judge,
monitored,
judicial
judicially,
monitoring through the drug court, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, I would.
What were you faking?
I guess my rehabilitation. It wasn't a genuine desire to get better. It wasn't for those 9 months. And then I think I don't know. I just woke up, and I thought, fuck, bro, like you've been given this chance to really turn your life around and deal with what you haven't dealt with
By one woman,
by one woman, yeah.
a judge,
A judge, yeah.
right?
And she was incredibly empathetic, thinking back on it, incredibly. And so I just decided to honour her commitment to me. 75% through my actual, sentence at the time.
What was the change in your life, Aston? What did it involve?
Cutting out drugs and alcohol, being with myself, learning how to be with myself. So, there was a lot of people that disappeared, and that wasn't intentionally. I didn't shut people off. I just wasn't going out anymore. People would text me still at even a year later would text me at 3 a.m. Hey bro, you out? It was it was quite strange, but it was a filtration process, both internally and externally. So I was filtering all the shit out of my body, and as a result of that, I guess what was around me also sort of dissipated, and that kind of gave me the freedom to be me and learn who I was. And for those last 3 months, I was completely sober. And again, going back to the dependence thing, I never ever felt in that 3 months, I never felt like I needed to have a drink or I needed to do whatever. It was just this firm focus on trying to experience life again.
So,
in its purest form, I guess.
and experiencing your life in its purest form is life without your brother.
Yeah.
And it's with what the absence of your brother was filled. These conversations are about grief, right?
Mm.
What was the absence filled with?
Love for myself, an appreciation for myself. I mean, there were activities, obviously. I was going to the gym and bought myself a bike, and I would fill my days with positive energy, I guess, or creating positive energy from within myself. I didn't share too much of that initially, and for that first month of being sober, I cried. I cried a lot. I would speak to Sean a lot. I would, ask him why he decided to leave then, or
He's dead.
Yeah.
What do you mean? He's dead.
But I always felt him around. I still feel him around. I still feel his guidance hugely in decisions that I make, regardless of whether I sit there and go, okay, hey Sean, what do you think I should do with this? I don't do that. That's not what I do. It's more just this. It just feels like the decision that is being made is being guided to some degree, because life has really, from where it could have gone, has worked out pretty nicely to now sit here with you and talk about it and reflect on it all. Like, I'm very, very happy and content, and I still have a lot of motivation to achieve certain things, and yeah, that didn't exist in that period.
I'm getting a sense that there is still an us. There's still,
very much so.
Look, and when I met you as a boy, and then right the way through, there was always Aston and Sean and Aston.
Yeah.
And there still is.
There still is. A lot of people still talk about him. I still talk about him a lot. It feels weird that we sit here and say, "Oh, he died 10 years ago." Like it could have been 6 months ago with the amount of conversation that is still around my brother and his influence on them and whatever. And because it was such a, he managed to, in those last months, that positive energy he was putting out there just influenced so many people, to various degrees, obviously. But yeah, I'm constantly talking about him.
I was describing him the other day to someone, right? And I said he was that guy who you'd be walking along the road, and there'd be this, yo, hey, whoa, hey, Charlesy, whoa, yay, hey, whoa. And it's like, he didn't care who else was around.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter how busy he was. You'd look over, there'd be this huge grin and this muscular, bouncing, smiling guy going, it's me, hey, it's you, whoa, yeah, you're good, wow, yeah. Hey. And then he's gone.
Yeah, and then he's gone, yeah. Yes, during while he was driving, hanging out of the window. So.
We've only got a few minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
What is grief?
It's a journey. For me, it was a pretty extreme journey. But it's normal.
You've marked that journey on your body.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
a few times.
And thank you for showing me, right? Because I noticed that the tears on your fingers, which are the 5 people, was it?
Yeah, four people that passed away.
Joe,
And Sean,
and Shawnee.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, the shirt comes off and heavily tattooed. Has that been the passage of your journey? And actually, a great tattoo of
Yeah,
Sean on you.
that was a part of the healing process, definitely. And it started because it was something that me and Sean were going to do. Then obviously the family crest turned into a portrait of him, and then I got the family crest to honour, what me and him were going to do.
Can you talk about the ink though? There's
Well,
an ingredient in the ink.
Yeah. So on the portrait, I ended up getting some of Sean's ashes mixed in with the ink. Now, scientifically, does that implant it in your body? Probably not. But I think it was such a wonderful gesture, and the artist who did it felt very proud. It elevated the tattoo. And for me, it's something that I treasure completely. And the fact that he was open to doing that and all the rest of it. It was a very very special ingredient.
There's a tapu about that, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
The ring?
Yeah, I had a ring made for my brother and my father, and we had some of his ashes, mixed in with the gold during that process too. So, he's, you said, it's an us thing, and it's totally an us thing. I've got my right hand man on my right arm, and he guides my left. So it's he's still very very much a part of my life.
Here's what I've got out of this conversation. There's a couple of things. I haven't seen you for a few years. And there's probably another conversation we need to have about the last phone call you made to me. So maybe we'll do another conversation about
I was
about
literally
that
just going to bring that up. That was probably the last time we actually had a chat.
It's a long time ago, right? Several years ago, right? Yeah, 6 years ago. Here's what I got out of this conversation. I am surprised by the joy that, and again, I'm doing it now. Whenever I think of your brother, I grin, right? And, my daughter's mum, Vivian, she does, right? My whānau, right? Your mate, Coco, so we just grin. And yet here you are. Congratulations on getting through the other side when your survival, your dignity, your grace, your humanity, your kindness were never guaranteed to survive this. Mm-hmm. And well done. And I love that same energy of Sean and Aston, of Aston and Sean, is still present with you so powerfully, and it's a joyful one. I don't understand how you did that, but oh my goodness, I'm going to reflect on that from this conversation. Thank you for wanting to do this, and
It's been a pleasure.
Where are you left with this conversation?
I guess my intentions here were to obviously come and share some memories and some stories and I guess my journey. But for me, this isn't about my journey really. I can only speak to that. But my goal here is really just to hopefully share a bit of awareness around grief and around death. Like, it is such a normal part of life, however, is treated so unnormal. Obviously different cultures have different ways of dealing with things, but I found in my Anglo-Saxon Pākehā way of dealing with it, it's always very morbid. And I think it's for me, it's an absolute celebration. And I think that the discussion around death needs to be normalized. And it should be normalized. Like us sitting here talking about, well, unfortunately, it was all about Shawnee, and I would love to get into, your journey with Paul and stuff as well. But it's actually a wonderful discussion to have, because we do remember the good times more often than not. Yes, we grieve. Yes, we miss. Yes, we wish that they were sitting right here next to us, but they're not. So let's share that with someone else. Who's definitely gone through the same thing. There's not one person in this world that hasn't suffered some sort of loss. And so for me, I hope that whoever listens to this or whatever is able to maybe just have that conversation with someone if they feel they want to. I'm not here to force that conversation, but I think it's a very healthy and normal conversation to have. It is joyous for me, and I hope that doesn't sound self-righteous or anything or whatever. But it's I love sharing. I love talking about my brother. It's a blessing.
I think you'd struggle to ever sound self-righteous. And I struggle to think of a better reason than why I came up with this idea and wanted to create At a Loss.